Happy New Year and welcome to our first episode this year. My name is Dr. Mercy Korir. We take a look back at some of the stories that shaped the Health Digest show in 2021. Our starting point is Nairobi City County. We take a look at the story of hearing impairment from the stories of the Juakali artisans working in Kamukunji. When passing through Jogoo Road in Nairobi, the shiny Juakali products displayed by the roadside will attract you. If you move close by, you'll find an item or two that you probably have been looking for. But it is the noise from these Kamukunji Juakali sheds that stands out. One by one, the metals are pounded into form. Whichever item is needed, the artisans in this establishment that dates back 60 years to colonial times can make it. The beautiful Juakali items that come from this place are not without casualties. The men and women generating these items have literally paid with blood and sweat for you to get the everyday items in your household. The price? Hearing impairment, and for some, total hearing loss.
Hii kazi ni ngumu, kitu ya kwanza. Ni ngumu sana. Unaweza fanya hii kazi hata kwa wiki moja. Hiyo wiki ya pili huwezi fanya. Unasikia kama mwili imechoka. Kwa hizo miaka 10 ambazo nimefanya, nimeumia kwa mwili sana. Kitu ya kwanza, kelele. Hii kazi na interfere na masikio. Ikiingia kwa masikio sana, hata mtu akatuongelesha huwezi sikia vizuri.
Shida ya masikio inakuwa kwa sababu hii vitu ambavyo tunatengeneza kama karai, sufuria, tunapiga. Na ikipigwa na nyundo, kelele inakuwa mingi zaidi. Hizi kelele ikikuwa mingi, inafanya mtu akikaa hapa zaidi ya mwaka 15, masikio inaziba. Tusipokuwa na bidhaa hizi ya masikio ambayo inaweza fanya ukipiga karai iwezi karibu eardrum, inakuwa ni sawa. Na tukipata vitu kama hizo itatoweka pale pazuri.
Thomas represents 7,000 people whose bread and butter comes from this noise. We were here for 2 hours, and by the time we were stepping out of the sheds, the noise from the matatus and the hustle and bustle of the city paled in comparison with what the Juakali artisans face.
Once you get hearing loss due to that kind of noise, it is a permanent kind of hearing loss, in which case eventually they will need hearing aids. So in order to avoid that, progressing into that, prevention is always better than cure. And so we felt like we'd like to focus on them. And there are huge groups.
Sounds comes in through the outer ear, is amplified in the mid ear, and then is transmitted into the brain from the inner ear. Any one of these 3 parts can be a cause of hearing loss.
With old age, one may also experience a degeneration of hearing, starting with high-frequency sounds, and someone only hears low-frequency sounds. Professor Masharia Mudhure, an ENT surgeon, explains.
It is not known, and it is thought that some of it is almost predetermined, that even if you have not been exposed to any noxious situation, that your hearing may decline. Just the same way that lots of other parts of the body decline in functionality as we grow old. So it's like we lose certain sensory cells in the cochlea, so that, and you know, they are not regenerated. So with time, you keep losing more and more. Many times we start with the high frequency sounds, and then the cells that finally give way are the low frequency sound. So you'll find, for example, say a man of 70 who doesn't hear his wife, but can hear another old man, because the old man has more bass than high frequency hearing loss, and it causes a lot of conflict in the home, because the wife feels that he has selective hearing loss, doesn't listen to her but listens to other people.
This decline in hearing needs urgent medical attention. Otherwise, the elderly will start deteriorating.
You have hearing loss and it is not corrected, especially in your 4th and 5th decade. It has been related to cognitive decline. And in other words, that it sort of is a high risk for development of dementia. But if it is corrected in good time, it reduces this cognitive decline. And this is information over the last 10 years has clearly come out to correlate lack of hearing and cognitive decline. It means that sound also has a role in stimulating your brain activity.
The Juakali artisans need earplugs and other hearing protectors as personal protective equipment. Otherwise, they will need hearing aids which do not come cheap.
Most of our hearing aids now are digital, so we program them commensurate with the need that the patient has. Having said that, there are also other environmental factors which we counsel them about, telling them that, you will have a little bit of challenge when you're in a very noisy background. Those are things that, you can control your environment so that you're able to hear the person who's speaking to you better. But the instruments themselves come with features such as we have mentioned, noise cancellation features, which help in reducing the background noise and amplifying more of the speaker, the person who's speaking to the patient. The other thing is that in schools, there are what we call FM systems. These are systems where a teacher wears a transmitter and the child wears a receiver, which is connected to the hearing aid, and that allows for background noise to be reduced significantly for the child to be able to hear what the teacher is saying.
From Kamukunji, we head to the operating theatre.
They are not just animals. To some, they are family, friends, home guards, or just pets. For some, pets are a medical prescription for emotional support. When they fall sick, they hurt, just like humans. At the Kenya Society for the Protection and Care of Animals, KSPCA, located along Langata Road, more than 50 animals have found shelter and a place they can call home. These cats, dogs, donkeys, horses and pigs were either abandoned, surrendered, stray, or suffered at the hands of their masters. This stray dog was found along Marist Lane in Karen. She needs to be spayed to control breeding, a way of managing the dog population in the country. She does not have a name, but let's call her Marist.
First have to go through the skin. Through the underlying fat layer. The uterus is my conduit. It's two like this. So I have to get one side and then the other one. Yeah.
In certain occasions during the surgery, the amount of anesthesia has to be topped up if the patient starts recovering from its effects before the surgery is over. In an animal or pet's life, many surgeries and procedures can be done. In some extreme cases, nothing much can be done and an animal's life has to be taken away.
We get most of those cases of dogs being hit by a car. When they come in, we assess the situation. Unfortunately, a good number of them come with their backs broken. And in such a situation, recovery, the chances of recovery are usually very low. Yeah. So I will make the choice of euthanasia. This is putting them to sleep. Yeah. Because you look at the quality of life. If we have a protocol and a guide on checking quality of life, if after checking I find that the patient will not going to have a quality life, then as a veterinarian I'm permitted by law to perform euthanasia. So we put them to sleep just to get them from that pain, because most of the time they're suffering a lot. It's easy to try and get into a savior mode and try to save, and You put the animal through a lot over a long period of time, and you end up, maybe the patient will never recover. You've wasted resources and time. Yeah. So for those ones that I feel that maybe it's just a broken limb, we'll go and do an x-ray. If it's something that can be fixed, we do it. Sometimes the injuries are extreme, we end up amputating the leg.
The shelter has housed different varieties of dogs, from the famous German Shepherd, Japanese Sphinx to the local breeds. Adopting one will cost you 8,000 shillings. That is, after you have been verified as a suitable pet owner. Humans are termed to be complex creatures, and some meet their anger on animals. These donkeys and horses have scratch marks, proof of how inhumane people can be.
Provide proper shelter. That's a place to sleep, or a place to hide from the sun or other weather elements like rain, wind. Provide proper food, nutritious food, and adequate and clean water ad libitum. In case they're sick, they get medical attention. We also need to provide for them an area where they can express themselves, their natural behavior.
Pets, just like human beings, require proper medical attention in order to create a sustainable and peaceful environment for both human beings and the animals.
On the other hand, I also focused on matters grieving. Well, it's a very uncomfortable topic for many who've lost their loved ones. Here in Africa, many people have interesting perceptions when it comes to the loss of newborns. Take a look. Pregnancy is a journey traveled by a mother and her unborn baby. It comes with its own challenges and risks to both. This creates a strong bond between the two, a bond that often lasts a lifetime. But when this bond breaks and takes away the child's life, it ravages the mother emotionally, socially, and even physically. This loss comes in form of a miscarriage, stillbirth, or child loss. Either way, it remains a sad reality for many families in Kenya.
On the ladies, and then...
Bennington Awino Ooko is an audit manager in a local bank. But away from his job, he dedicates his time to helping fathers who have suffered a child loss to cope with their grief through the Tears Foundation. But before he got to do this, he has his own painful backstory of pregnancy loss.
We lost about 5 different stages, different months before birth. So the toll, I took a toll on my wife. For those years, it's probably 10, 13 years, she was carrying that burden. And we had about one of our colleagues lost her son, so she got referred to Tears Foundation. So when she finally realized that, she invited my wife to their meetings. So my wife attended their meetings for a whole year as they take her through the journey of loss. That is like 13 years later. But she was carrying that burden. So she informed me about it, and I thought it was a wise thing.
His wife told him the burden she was carrying for more than 13 years has been eased off thanks to the sessions she was having at Tears Foundation. According to Ooko, it's not easy for men to open up.
Being the first man, I decided let me take the mantle and share my experience and be the leader of Men Foundation chapter, Tears Foundation chapter, men's chapter.
He reminisces on his long and winding emotional journey.
I think the first one was the hardest because we've got married, 5 years, no kids. Everybody's asking what is happening. The boys club is asking, what are you doing with your wife? Others saying probably 1 or 2, something is wrong, either your wife or you. Then finally she tells you she's expecting that joy. Then I think we started going to clinic, and I used to accompany her because we waited for so long. So I used to go to every other appointment with the doctors. So finally, on the 7th month, they do a scan, and they say there's a problem. the baby is not moving. After waiting for those months here, that was a bit painful. Now they had to go and take her to the theater and wash her. You already told everybody, my wife now is expecting, everybody in the village knows, the whole network knows. Then finally it's very hard now to come and tell guys, we are not now going to have a baby. That one was a struggle.
For him, the greatest lesson he has learned is the need for a solid support system for people going through such events.
But by the grace of God, we managed, and at least I had my mother and my grandmother who were a very good support system to me. They kept praying for us, but it's not easy. Even your friends, you see your friends, their kids, you guys, you've gone to school together. They have kids, you don't have kids. You go to their birthdays, you don't have somebody to call your kid.
Child and infant losses often strain the relationship between the couples, with some marriages even crumbling.
My wife was carrying the biggest burden, because as much as I'm the father to the unborn, she's the one who's carrying the baby. She's already felt in her womb all those time, yeah? She's having sickness, he's always in the hospital, so she carried the bigger burden than me. So my aim, what I resolved to do was to support her throughout. But men must come out and start sharing and start speaking.
Joyce Washira has also been through this issue of child loss.
I'm a mother to Josiah, who was born in 2002. And I'm also a mother to a girl called Neema. I lost Neema in 2003 through a miscarriage. And I rarely would introduce Neema unless it's in a platform like this. So sometimes it also comes as a shock to people who don't know that I had a miscarriage. Because when I had that miscarriage, those are the days that you don't talk about it. There's a lot of stigma and shame around it. So for many years, I never talked about that until when I knew better. And that's 10 years after Neema. That means in 2013, I got to know that many women lose their pregnancies and they go silent. And some of them even deep into depression just because of not sharing and not talking about it and trying to suppress and trying to forget.
Pregnancy loss is always overlooked, but Joyce says it should not be so.
Perinatal loss is definitely a very unique kind of loss because, as you'll hear from many moms, if it's a miscarriage or a stillbirth, probably not many people knew you're pregnant. Like for me, nobody knew I was pregnant, apart from probably very close people, because I was at 10 weeks when I lost Neema. And so not many people know. So by the time you are grieving, you are telling somebody, I'm feeling so sad, I've lost a pregnancy, people are wondering, so what are you grieving? We didn't even know, you didn't even bond, People even call it, that was just blood, So what are you grieving about? So it is really minimized. But the grief is just as any other loss.
Death of a loved one leaves a void in one's life. Grieving often creates a thin line between holding on to memories of the ones we love and letting go, which is not easy. Grief itself is like an ocean, sometimes calm, sometimes rough, but one must keep sailing.
About 5 years ago, before his diagnosis, being rendered immobile and fully dependent on someone else to even do the simplest of tasks was the last thing on 26-year-old Dixon Yego's mind. What started as a headache before progressing to paralysis has now seen Yego confined to this wheelchair and a frequent visitor in hospitals.
I'm paralyzed kutoka neck mpaka chini. So nilikuwa nalishwa kila kitu, nasaidiwa everything. Ikarudi tena mara ya 3 yenye paralyzed mpaka muscles za chest. Nikapelekwa ICU for 1 month and after hapo nikakaa ward 6 months. Ndio sai nangangana na recovery. So nimetoka ward, ICU ward, then niko sasa kwa recovery.
before his diagnosis with multiple sclerosis, an autoimmune disease in which the body's immune system attacks its own tissues, Yego had been mistakenly diagnosed with a different disease. And with each passing day, his health deteriorated and the hospital became his second home.
The first one, walikuwa wameanza wakasema ni transverse myelitis. Alafu wakakuja wakasema ni multiple sclerosis. So ni a nerve disease yenye ina affect yenye ni autoimmune. So generally niko na shit, yani nasaidiwa everything kama turning na niko na shida tena na kucontrol port bladder and bowels. Yeah.
And just like any other patient with a lifelong condition, the cost of medication remains a nightmare for Yego's family. Having exhausted all its financial avenues, the family now depends on well-wishers to help keep him alive.
Kununua dawa na kumpeleka check-up. Dawa mara ya kwanza wakati alidischargewa 2018, alidischargewa mwezi wa pili. Dawa ilikuanga 20,000, 12,000, 15,000 per month. Dawa peke yake bila chakula. Sasa tumestruggle na wakati alidischargewa hatukuwa na pesa. Tukapata pesa kidogo. Bili yote ilikuwa 5 million. But tukajaribu kidogo tukapata 2 million, 3 million ikabaki. Tukatumia title deed. Nikaomba my brother title deed. Tukamfungua kwa hospitali. Tukawacha title deed ya my brother huko Real Hospital. Tukakuja tukapata changamoto kubwa ya kununua madawa. Hatukupata pesa ya kulipia bill ya hospitali. Alafu tutoe title deed ya wenyewe. Sasa tumekaa pressure ya kununua dawa imekuwa ngumu. Pressure ya kulipa bill kwa hospitali alafu title deed ya wenyewe ikuje imekuwa ngumu. Kila kitu imekuwa ngumu mpaka saa hii, ingawaje dawa imerudi chini kidogo, si mbaya. Tunalipa sasa 10,000 per month kwa dawa peke yake. Sasa challenge kubwa ni wakati ya COVID, tukaenda hospitali 2020 mwezi wa 3. Daktari akatuambia mkae nyumbani juu ya COVID. Sasa tuko nyumbani kidogo, mimi mwenyewe naenda kumwambia daktari filako. Ndio yeye mwenyewe sasa ako nyumbani. Imekuwa challenge kubwa, hata kupata gari ya kumpeleka hospitali ni ngumu. Kununua dawa ni ngumu. Na sina kasi, niko nyumbani. Tungangangana tu nyumbani, hatuna kasi yoyote. Ni kutegemea tu well-wishers, maziwa kidogo, nguku kidogo. Ile tu ya kawaida ya mama akiwa nyumbani. Sasa naomba well-wishers, watu wenye wameniona wanisaidie kulipa bill hata imekuwa shida zaidi. Hata kununua dawa ni afadhali, lakini bill imekuwa ngumu. Mpaka juzi my brother anataka title deed yake, kweli imekuwa ngumu, imekaa na amenisaidia for those years. About more than 4 years now. From 2018 to now. Na tunaomba Mungu siku moja amfanikie huyu kijana apate kuamka ili hata naye afurahie vile amekaa for those years wakati alikuwa university, amalizie shule yake, masomo yake, hata atembee tu.
Positive attitude amid such challenges definitely makes a difference. That's where we wind up this episode of Health Digest, and on behalf of my colleagues at the Health and Science Desk, we wish you a happy new year, a prosperous 2022, and we look forward to giving you more stories this year. My name is Dr. Mombasa Road.